Call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. First item on the agenda is to review the minutes from the March 31st meeting.
Which should have said April 8th.
Yes.
That was my bad.
Yeah, I'm just.
I've stopped putting dates on there because it never is
Our
right.
minutes
Yeah.
do say April 8th.
Yes, I didn't even catch it, my bad.
I don't have any comments on the minutes.
Motion to accept. We have a motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Since we're all here, we don't need to do a roll call, so all in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. On to the nuts and bolts, compensation classification plan continue. Hopefully everybody had a chance to go through and review and make minor changes, major changes. I think most cases just minor changes. And
I printed out for you my review and I highlighted on the big table. Anything in red is something that I modified based on my review of the job descriptions and what was previously valued. There was one position, library assistant, which was on this table, but there actually is no library assistant position. That's an old position that we don't use anymore, so that's removed altogether.
Oh, okay.
But otherwise, this shows you the updated values. I wanted to use this as a way to kind of now compare to what your notes are to see if there's agreement or if there's further revision, discussion that you'd like to have. That'll help us focus at least on the positions and the grading for each of those jobs. And then we have to talk about the totals and how many points go to each grade level. But let's first start on the
Yeah. Of course, he started with the chart they told us not to use.
thank you very much.
well, yeah.
Because it could fit all on one page.
Because it's
Because it's all on one page. If you have this, then you can.
Right,
go through.
yeah. Okay.
Because they all pull into that main sheet.
Oh, okay. Well, this I didn't look at beforehand. And it may be that some of yours are the same as some of mine. How do you want to handle this, Keith?
I almost think we just start at the top and position by each one. Down by one.
Yeah, although it might be that I had sometimes took all the library ones and kind of compared across them. And found some things that were inconsistent, but
Likewise.
so
Yeah. So we'll start on cemetery.
Yeah, I think we'll just go in order on what you have for a list.
All right, so.
Is there any way you can share that on the screen or? I don't know, yeah.
Copies or
So.
share on the screen, whatever you want.
Do you want to just make photocopies of this?
I can,
Yeah. All right. So cemetery commission, sexton, really. The modifications I was recommending was under experience and confidentiality. They require little to no experience and they have no confidentiality requirements. So I moved both of those to ones, but I kept all the others as is, as they seemed appropriate based on the job description, but I don't know if anybody else's review of the sexton required other adjustments or suggested other adjustments.
I didn't suggest any others, but I mostly I spot checked and I didn't check those two that you mentioned all.
I lowered the experience. Then under supervision given, I increased it to a 2, which netted it back to a 250. But
Which one did you raise?
on the cemetery, I dropped the experience from a 2 to a 1. In supervision given, I went from a 1 to a 2. Only is that
Directing contractors.
they have to work with the contractor, the company that comes in to dig graves, and that's to be, so they do a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we'll move supervision given that's a 2, which gives it 5 points.
Which then with your formula, your number will be a 210.
Yeah.
Which I had a 215, but a 210 on the flag with that too. Agree.
Yeah, I think so.
It's not gonna, that's not gonna affect the, it's still gonna be a grade. two, or grade one.
Grade one, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm all okay with library and confidentiality.
yeah.
And experience.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I think I would agree with that.
Okay. So we'll now end up cemetery at 210.
Yep.
Sexton. The next item is, oh,
Oh, it says substitute library substitute.
because it got reorganized once I revalued the positions or the numbers. So do we want to jump to the substitute library associate?
Yes.
Yeah,
I didn't have a page for substitute library associate in my packet last week.
Yeah,
Should have.
it did.
Yeah.
It was after library associate.
I had library associate, I had library assistant, and I had library director. But nowhere in here did I have substitute library associate. Yeah,
We substitute.
because I had a lot of things on the library ones written in.
The substitute looks like it's identical to the library associate except for accountability.
Yes.
It's 2 instead of the 3. So Joyce, just in terms of.
Yeah,
they
which
essentially
makes
are.
it the same as the library assistant. Right, what I had.
Remember, there is no library assistant
Well, okay, but it was in my packet.
because there originally it was part of
So-
the evaluation that the director did or the project.
So the only difference is, see, I had a problem with, can we do all the library ones at once? Including substitute library associate. One of the things I found that was not consistent among them was the experience was not consistent and, the knowledge and skills. So it says all the library jobs say for the knowledge, skills, and education. But if you look at the job descriptions, they don't have, like one of them requires a bachelor's degree. The other could be bachelor's degree or could be equivalent experience. The other one just has a list of skills. I don't think they all add up to 4. But I didn't have, and maybe this is same thing for substitute library associate. So that was one place. And then in experience on this rubric for, I can't remember what are you calling this part. For experience, it's just about how many months of related experience. And none of the job descriptions require any amount of time of related experience. There's one that has a degree, experience preferred is often what they say. One of them says, like, one of the skills they want you to have is one that you would only get if you were a library assistant or some sort of worked in the library. But I thought it was really inconsistent. It seemed like the library director, like the experience was a smaller number, it was 2, but it was 3 for the library assistant and associate.
I picked up on that.
So that just seemed like
I made
they
those
weren't
changes.
consistent across. And they weren't consistent with
Right.
the
So
with what was written in the.
in order to help us kind of keep these so that we stay a little more in line, if let's look at the substitute library associate and library associate, because the library director or
It's a whole different.
the library director is different. So let's take that out for a second. We're not looking at
Okay.
library assistant because it doesn't exist. So we're only looking at the line items for substitute library associate and library associate. Although it shows in black, substitute library associate was also corrected. So my recommendation was adjusting knowledge training, problem solving, physical skills, experience, confidentiality, occupational risk, and complexity. All of those got reduced, and the only difference between these 2 positions of substitute and regular associate is just that accountability. So for knowledge and training, it's a level 2 because it does not require the degree. The problem solving, the reason why I was recommending a 3 is because requires having full command and representative job knowledge and the ability. So it was reducing it down because they have to have the ability, but they're not going to be able to make those decisions because the library director is going to make those decisions. Physical skills.
drop that.
drop that down to a 2
I agree with
Okay,
that.
that's, yeah,
because they aren't moving large items.
you might have to swing a book or two around.
Right.
It doesn't,
Experience,
I
the
love-
positions,
Well, the weird thing, the associate is a 2 and the substitute was a 3.
right,
No.
No, they're all same.
it should be the same now.
Three,
Only the accountability is different.
Associates of 3, substitutes of 2.
2.
Can we talk about experience just for a second?
Sure.
To make sure we're all understanding this, because to me, this was confusing. The first sentence in, as Joyce called it, the rubric, says the length of time usually or typically required to perform the essential work functions effectively and in their best supervision. Then it says, it talks about previous experience. And it was unclear to me whether a position is rated based on how much previous experience you need to enter the position, or the position is rated on how long, how much experience is expected to get up to speed, which can be previous experience or experience in the position.
what I remember from the last meeting was look at the job descriptions about how much
Oh,
experience.
I
is
see what
required.
you're getting caught up on, the length of time required to become proficient in the job.
Yeah.
It's one and the same. It primarily is referred to the experience necessary to enter the position, though there are some jobs that you may have seen that says after you get into the job, you need to go to like the town clerk school. And so that's an additional year of experience, but you do it post. But you would add the two together. You would do the basic
Yeah,
experience plus the additional experience that's required after.
because I was thinking back to what Jim had been saying last time. After they finished the academy, then there was, sort of all the job training required as well.
Right.
So I just wanted to make sure we're all thinking about this the same.
It's to enter the position, and then if there are specific items of training that are noted in the experience in the job description that come after, then we would add that in.
Thank you.
Substitute and the library associates don't have that. So I had suggested a 2, which was 3 to 1 year of related experience. There was a recommendation from the job description.
Makes sense.
No, good with that.
No adjustment to interactions, it seemed appropriate. Confidentiality. Negligible.
Yeah, I didn't know that it needed confidentiality.
Could likely be dropped ones, but in essence, all employees are going to be inadvertently subject to confidential items, not as a normal course, but it may just be brought up. So I think no exposure is non-existent. Everybody's going to have some minor exposure. So that's why I think at a minimum we could say 2.
Yeah. I mean, you have records of people taking books out.
Yeah,
So-
which is
but
PII. So personal identifying information is considered confidential.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that minor element.
On the next one, I have a discrepancy with occupational risk.
Let me say the next one you mean,
Next one down, occupational risk.
the same line,
The
Right,
the
we're going
question
through
I
each
have
other.
is the director is a 2, but both of the associates were listed as 3s.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I suggested moving them to 2.
And that's what I suggested.
Yeah.
Great.
Complexity of the job. I recommended moving both of them down to 2s. There's standardized practices that they have to follow, but it still consists,
not for you to come up with them.
right? They're not making those decisions. The library director would still be making, but
Yeah.
then. Okay, the supervision received, given in scope. received. Have them the same. I didn't touch any of these. The received is a 3 because they're assigned, but they'll get minimal instruction and monitoring, but they'll still be verified by the library director that they've done their job correctly. Yep. They have no supervision that they give, so it's a 1.
Right.
And as far as scope is concerned, left it at 1. Yep. Which is that it doesn't require any to provide any job instruction to others or control projects. They have no oversight.
To what extent are they overseeing patrons? Of the library?
Well, they're not giving job instruction.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
good question, but yeah, they're not,
They're.
the patrons don't, yeah.
Right, in the same way that an officer might be in command of people, that's different than a librarian helping or working with a group of
Well,
people.
this is about supervision as opposed to like.
Right, because when we talked about the police, we did talk about how an officer had seen.
Well, that's because when you get
Supervising.
into the more specifics in here, yeah, it has to do with. Actually, I don't think it is under supervision scope. I think that's,
Because there is the second one here around.
Yeah. supervision given.
Given the big meeting,
Yeah,
yeah.
so scope, leave it at 1.
It's fine for me.
Judgment and initiative, or accountability, suggested keeping those as is unless anybody has thoughts.
Fine with that.
So the difference again between substitute library associate and a library associate was on the accountability. Substitute library associate getting the accountability of 2, which is responsible for accuracy and thoroughness. The nature of supervision and thoroughness and review, that probably errors or potential consequences include time loss. Generally, just a minor accountability without a 1, whereas the standard library associate, they're there more frequently, so they have independently produce accurate work or made work products. So they have a little more of a responsibility because they are there more day to day. They're not a substitute. That was the main rationale there. Okay.
Before we move, constable, I saw this in a number of the changes that I made relative to people moving into groups. Group 1 has a pay range of 1710 to 1983. Both of these people are being paid more than that. The associate is at 20, it's like 20, 35, 2069.
Those ranges might change.
They will change.
Yeah.
We have to do this step first before we then evaluate, because we're also going to have to change the number of points that go to each grade. So that, because grade 1 is going to have a lot right now, if we use a 25 point, we're getting there.
Yeah.
I just want
And
to point out
somewhere in
that
there, the job market factors in, they're not at this point, but at some other point.
okay, thank you.
Okay, so constable,
Yeah, constable, I had no idea.
I had the same 2 notes. that
I
you
just
did.
said, well, there's no job description, so I have
there
no
is
idea.
no description.
Like why are the physical effort equal to 4 and experience 4? Like what experience is required of a constable? I just knew so little about what the job entailed.
Yeah, so that's why
I
both
would-
of those were recommended to be changed.
Yeah,
So my recommendation on the physical skills was to reduce it to a 3. Where is that one?
Yeah, it's the same.
So physical skills, they still physical strength, stamina, agility, they have to they have to go out into the field, they may have to move things, they do have to go to properties, they do have to serve papers, they do have to post things as necessary, such as warrants or whatnot. Whether they're actually moving up to 50 pounds, I think we don't necessarily have to look at that, but there's a moderate potential because they're out in the field.
Mhm.
But still reducing it down to 3. Experience, on the other hand, doesn't require any experience. So it would be on the job training, but first degree was.
They're not required to be a former police officer.
That's one.
Did anybody have any on any of the other criteria, any other thoughts, if there were any other adjustments?
No, those are the two I circled and put question marks.
I wondered about judgment and initiative, that if 2 isn't low, but I don't really great understand.
The constable's getting direction as to what to do. They're not making a judgment call on any particular
Serving
situation.
warrants, no judgment. Okay.
No, they're given the directive of here's a warrant that has to be served. They may have to make a judgment of, okay, if they're not here, what do I need to do? But there is a certain procedure that they have to follow. It's not a they have to change the plan each time. There is a process. There's no.
Yeah.
Good.
And the others all kind of seem like little and no, but it's.
Okay, transfer station attendant. This one, I recommended a number of changes, up and down, I think. First one I was recommending a revision to was the physical environment. They are at the transfer station, they're dealing with the weather, different materials that are brought to the station. I don't know that it goes to a level of 5, which is more in line with like a public safety officer or firefighter, but it's still close enough because of the materials that they have to, although they aren't primarily, they're not touching a lot of it, right?
No, they help take
They
stuff out of the car.
move bags and stuff.
And they're operating the compactors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the winter, they're out there in the
I
winter.
mean, I
Yeah, and the weather, yeah, they're out there in all weather.
I didn't have.
They organize a swap ship.
left them as a 5.
Yeah,
Me
Do you
too.
think we should leave them as a 5 then?
I do.
I think so, just mostly because of the weather part, but also, I mean, they are touching
They're
things, they are.
bags, They
Yeah.
could be sharps.
And
Okay. Another one, physical skill and effort. Suggested it go to a 4.
so circle that one.
I'm inclined to leave that as 5 because, yeah, they do lift and carry heavy objects and,
Stand and be active for extended periods.
yeah.
Frequently handling over 100 pounds.
No,
That was where I was getting a
Well,
little,
it just says regularly, doesn't say all the time. So,
well, 5 says frequently recurring assignment requiring heavy strenuous efforts such as lifting and carrying objects over 100 pounds.
Oh, I see, I was reading 4.
Oh, yeah. No.
Or could be a cat.
Yeah, I think,
4 says regularly 50 or more now, but yeah, so
Do we
that's
have-
where I
yeah.
just wasn't.
okay, no, I think 4 is actually, that was one of the ones I circled, that's what.
What do the others think though?
I just have been there when they're in the snow and ice and carrying stuff and helping, so, but I'm fine with 4, but
This one is less about the weather, this is more like the physical effort, yeah.
Physical,
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah,
have to walking across an icy, which I've been very grateful and worked about the.
Yeah.
It's not likely that it's hitting the 100-pound
Yeah,
on a regular basis.
Yeah,
Yeah, but maybe that's also true of a police officer.
well, we'll get to
Part-time police,
those.
yeah,
Yeah,
because that, I mean, that one's at the higher level.
but again, we'll get to those. Right now on the
Mhm.
transfer, so we're saying move it to 4.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
I guess so.
experience.
Yes.
Fewer.
If it was a 5, it would
It
get
was
another
It was a
10.
5.
Then, if we move it to 4, it loses 10.
Experience doesn't require experience, but I suggested at least giving it a 2, which is 3 months to 1 year.
That's what I dropped it from a 3 to a 2 as well.
Confidentiality, this is one where I actually said 1. It's one of the few. Yeah, the cemetery sexton and the transfer station are the only ones that I said 1. In reality, unless they're hearing discussion on the outside, they're not discussing things about town operations, confidential materials, information about people. So my suggestion was moving it to a 1, but could certainly do it as a 2.
I think one's that appropriate.
Okay.
Okay.
Under supervision given and supervision scope, I suggested moving both of those to 1s. The transfer
Well, they
station.
are supervising people out there. They are out there telling people like what they have to do and when they have to go. Much the same way the traffic cop does traffic, only it's a different set of safety things when you're at the transfer station. I do feel like they do supervise people, it's just not their employees. They're helping people put their stuff in the right place. I don't know if that, maybe it doesn't come under supervision.
I would only
I think
drop
it's under scope.
The customer service one.
Drop them to a 2 instead of 1.
I had it too.
Given.
Yeah. Whereas it was at a 3, I only went to a 2 instead of a 1.
Okay,
11,
so everybody else agree with a 2?
Yeah.
Okay,
on 11.
11, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I still feel like they are doing something that is akin to supervising. They're supervising.
Which is
something out
what-
there, which,
2 is, when you look at 3, it moves it to a responsibility of more of a department head based on that last sentence.
yeah,
Whereas 2 has little or no responsibility for total cost, methods, or personnel. It's still saying
Yeah.
you have some supervising.
okay. So for supervision.
Yeah, I think
Given, then maybe that's really your saver too.
I think your thought there is more covered by the number 6, customer service.
Interactions with others.
Correct.
Yeah, but you gotta do what the
Contacts.
attendant tells you. And-
Contacts are with the service recipients, the general public.
Yeah,
I think what you're saying, Joyce, is precisely why I gave supervision given a 2, but scope is away. Because 3 for scope is, provide instructions, directions, coordinate activities, and I think
Yeah.
that's what they're doing when I go there.
mhm,
They're giving me instructions.
It was a 3 and I left it as a 3.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
So we'll leave scope at 3 then.
I think the scope
Yeah.
should be 3. Supervision given is a 2. Right. And you had it as a 1, correct?
Yeah,
I changed that, bring that up as 2.
And then the only other that I suggested is revising accountability. Suggested a 3. They're independently doing their work. Most work is being double checked at some point. there are potential consequences that could result in monetary loss, processing important information, waste of the work group time and materials, damage to buildings or equipment, and minor personal injuries. Anybody else have any other thoughts as far as what rate to do accountability?
So I had left them as a floor only because of the handling of the money, but for accountability. But I don't really see where how that's great in accountability section.
I guess when I read through number 4, I also read the nature of the word means that errors in judgment techniques would probably be difficult to detect. And I thought, yeah, nobody's gonna run through them. I was gonna run through there and see, oh, there's a piece of glass, but when I just read through 4 and thought, yeah, that seems right, but I hadn't read through 3.
I think he brings up a good point.
I just don't know how that
They do
words
handle
in there,
money.
but they're handling money, and if you're, I mean, the potential consequences resulting in a sense, it's you're not charging for the bags or something, the market's not gonna operate.
Yeah. Should we leave it at 4 or move it to 3? Joyce?
Covered by the 40,
Yeah, I feel like I read 4 and I thought that was okay.
Jerry?
3 to me is sufficient.
Keith?
I could go either way, I just bring up that issue of where else in the job, in this rating does handling of the money come into if it's not in accountability?
Yeah. Yeah. So you're more 4.
I'm more for,
So we'll leave it at 4. Okay.
What's the final score for them?
280.
280 puts them in the category number 2.
Well,
The
we don't know what
categories.
that.
Yeah, let's not worry about that yet.
Well, I'm just looking at the,
No, those are gonna,
Yeah.
the points are gonna change.
They're all gonna change, so let's stay focused on one piece, then the next piece will be worried about the grade levels.
Yeah.
Because we do have to make adjustments there.
excuse my impatience.
All right, the admin assistant to the other boards, not the non-select board admin assistant. There were a lot of changes. I recommended a lot of changes here.
Yeah, they were identical, I thought, the other boards and select,
Which they shouldn't be.
and they
sure
should.
that, yeah, there's.
Yeah.
Just very
So,
different.
yeah,
roles.
so that's good. I would be really interested in your.
So on the physical environment, reduce that to a 1. This individual isn't even required to come to the building. They can
Okay.
work remotely from the one position that they can work remotely.
Will that always be the case though?
It's in the job description. Yeah.
All right.
Knowledge, skill, and education. We require minimal education here, so I would suggested that 2. Problem solving skills and effort, suggested reducing this to 3. They do still have to make judgment calls when, somebody applies for or asks to be on an agenda late, how that gets moved, the timing and sequencing for those agendas, and hearings. So they do have to make some judgment calls here. So they have to come up with how to solve it, work with their chair of their board, though the chair is ultimately making the decision, but they're going to have to initiate that conversation with their chair. So I thought that at a minimum, giving it a 3. Physical skills, a 1, again, because they are primarily only working on the laptop or the computer, and they can do that from home. Experience, About 3 here. And this is because we do ask that they have some clerical experience. We need to know that they know how to use Word and that they understand the English language. That there is some experience here just with clerical things, dealing with communications with the residents whenever they ask to get on an agenda. So we do require experience in the job description. So a 3.
That's what I had there. That's a 3.
Interaction with others. Suggested reducing it to a 3. They do not work with any contractors, any other civic leaders, any representatives of government agencies. They do work with various departments and their boards, as well as those that are requiring in order to get on an agenda, but not to the level of a 4. I didn't suggest changing confidentiality because they handle a lot of applications. There is a lot of confidential material that gets submitted. Keeping the occupational risk at 2. There's always a risk of getting out of it. Complexity suggested reducing that to a 2. Standardized practices, procedures, and processes that they have to follow, dealing with facts, field condition. So reducing it to a 2, but not down to a 1. Again, because they do, especially when it comes to legal ads and the timing and sequencing, as far as the legal requirements as to when something is applied and when it can go on the agenda, it rises at least to a complex level of 2. Supervision received. I didn't suggest changing this. Anybody have any thoughts on supervision received? Given in scope, however, I suggested dropping a 1. They give absolutely no supervision. There's none. They're not even monitoring. They're not monitoring anybody.
And supervising the board.
And supervision scope, I suggested keep reducing it to 1 because again, there's nothing required in job instruction to anybody else or controlling any projects. They're not handling any of that. Their chairs handle that. Judgment and initiative suggested reducing that to a 3. There's still standardized and specialized procedures, again, because of schedules, law, legal requirements that they have to follow. But they're falling under the direction of the chair, who's going to remind them about states. And then accountability, just to bring it to a 4. Errors can result in costs if they mess up legal ads, and then we have to rerun an ad, it's at our cost, things like that. So there are monetary issues. If
It's not a 5.
Yeah.
It's definitely not a 5.
Anybody have any thoughts on any of those or anything that we should further revise?
No, that was very helpful.
Yeah, you have a better handle. on
Because
that.
That total
I
was.
get all of that out of the job
Well,
description.
we've filled one of them 3 times since I've been here, so.
Take note.
Yeah.
It was very.
Should at least.
That was all.
Stays at 248.
Okay,
Custodian.
custodian. The custodian and library custodian,
All right.
both of them fall under Keith essentially.
No, well, the library custodian does not.
Does not, but you know the responsibilities.
Yes.
They
Yes.
would essentially be the same
They should be the same.
values, correct?
Correct.
So the only areas that I thought needed a modification is in the experience, the interaction, and confidentiality. Experience being,
Not down.
I went to a 2 instead of a 3.
I brought it down to a 1, but happy to do it as a 2 if you think. So for experience, that is a 1 means up to 3 months, 2 means they would need 3 months to a year of experience.
And it doesn't have to be experience to be a custodian, it's related experience.
Yeah, the one is fine, I guess.
Are you sure?
I just knew that it did not need to be a 3.
Anybody else have any strong feelings about 1 or 2?
No, I think I
The 1 is fine. I just will tell you that it should be a 3.
Yeah,
Right.
okay. We'll do a 1 for now. We can always come back to it. Interactions with others. I suggested bringing this down to a 2. They do have to interact with employees in the departments, the offices. Occasional contact with the public. But yeah, I just think it needs to be higher.
Great.
Okay,
Confidentiality suggested bringing this down to a 2. They may inadvertently go upon confidential material if they are cleaning in all the offices and whatnot, so. Although it's not a responsibility that they interact with it, they may inadvertently.
Yes.
Those are the only 3 that I suggested. Anybody else think that any other category in this position needed to be looked at?
No.
And we're saying the same thing for the library.
and same thing.
Both of them, yeah.
Yep, I agree.
I guess the only one that I was thinking in the library is they're less likely to come across confidential information.
That's true.
Well, I have it as a 2 for both. So even if somebody had put in a paper application with personal identified information on it, such as phone or email addresses, and it's sitting on the desk.
Okay.
That could be deemed as confidential, yeah. And again, it's only because they inadvertently, not because it's part of their required position.
Said it could also be based on books people take out.
Oh, like the records.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's printed out or something like that, yeah. Okay. So now recreation coordinator.
And that's I don't know if other people remember this part back. When we, at the select board level, wanted this position, we saw it as very much like an administrative assistant that's specializing in the rec. So I compared it to the admin assistant, and many of these things I think are lower, and that's good. If I can read my notes here, compared to the administrative assistant, most of these things are lower. Physical skills and physical environment are the two that are different.
Yeah.
So, in the end kind of said, okay, but I'm certainly willing to look at what other people are thinking.
I think that's a good.
Because that was our thought process when we were doing it. So I don't see a lot of changes here on Pete's.
I modified knowledge to be in line with the admin assistant, other boards. The rec coordinator, like you said, physical environment, I suggested keeping it, which would be higher than the admin assistant because they are in weather or potential.
And they're,
Problem solving, I thought would be higher than the admin assistant. And the reason the problem solving I gave us 4. Strong understanding
They're
of
the same, right? They're the same. Same rate?
But
Are they the same rate?
no, for problem solving for admin assistant, we have it at 18 points. For rec coordinator, I suggest they're keeping it at the 26 points.
Yeah.
Which was
which was what the admin assistant was before.
oh, that's why you're saying same.
That's why.
But we reduced the admin assistant.
We reduced it, so that one doesn't stick.
Are you okay with keeping the rec coordinator problem solving at a 4?
Yeah,
I felt that there's a little more here as far as understanding and coordinating some of those sports.
Yeah. yes,
They're not always going to engage with the commission. So,
right, and I think
Gonna
they are,
have a lot more complex problems to solve when it's scheduling and things of that nature.
yeah, I agree.
One other thing is that
I mean, it's sort of, that's the same problem solving skill as the admin assistant select board. So I was thinking about it, and it, you know, in what was already there, that seemed right.
okay. What were you saying, Susan?
The one that I was questioning was occupational risks. Previous person, I was thinking of three. Risk minor injuries, which again, you know, like examples would be the sprain and stuff. I don't know how involved they are in the actual.
Well, if they're a coach, it's separate from them being the rec.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's where I wasn't sure where this position fell on.
yeah, they're a coordinator as opposed to like actually doing any of the coaching or the training or the
Okay.
instructing.
That would be a different,
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is possible for that same person to volunteer to be a
Yes.
coach, but all the coaches are volunteers.
Yeah. Got it. Perfect, thank you.
so for me, on that position, the only things I suggested changing was the knowledge, skills, education, dropping it to a 2, based on the job description. We don't require a degree. Confidentiality, I suggested dropping it to a 3.
Raise it.
it's
Sorry, I
raising it, it's at a 2.
Oh, sorry, raising it to a 3.
oh,
So changing it to a 3 because of the fact that they are dealing with a lot of
personal identifying.
the PII
Personal
stuff.
information.
Yeah,
Okay,
Okay. Makes sense.
and also a rec coordinator likely is assisting with core checks and coaches and whatnot, which then also brings up other, yeah.
Okay.
Then the only other items that I suggested modifying was the supervision given and supervision scope. But we could have a discussion on that. So I suggested reducing both of those to 1s. So the job description says that there no supervision given, but if we look at it in terms of, are they supervising the coaches in a way or directing coaches? We
I
instead
think
make it
the
a 2.
recognition's that, but I don't know enough
Yeah,
to be confident about that.
well, the job description,
Yeah, let's give that job description.
so recruit volunteers, but it doesn't say manage the volunteers. Manage the facility schedules, updates and issues. It's the facility, not people. Coordinate and supervise youth sports programs. And that is the extent of people interaction responsibility.
But to the extent that happens. Like organizing the parents and the volunteers.
Yeah, I think that's not no, yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's a
it's
2.
not
It seems like a 2, yeah, it's not nothing.
Okay. What was it at?
My original, it was at 2,
Oh, it was, okay.
both given and scope.
And so what do we feel about scope then?
I think by now,
Yeah.
I refer to the document.
I'd say they're probably both too.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
The two.
I think so.
Yep.
okay.
So those are both for the change.
Well, in the one that I.
They'll go back to the
They'll go
original
back to
document.
the-
Yeah,
Right, but on his document.
They're going.
Yeah.
on his document. And you better be keeping track of the light shirt. Think about it. Yeah, it all sort of done.
So what's that final score then?
316. Yeah, 316. Library assistant, we're moving. So we'll go to assistant treasurer collector.
Right, oh, good, I'll look at yours first. Cause I also, with the treasurer collector and assistant treasurer collector, there were some inconsistencies. There.
Yeah.
That are, but maybe it's better to just look at what you did and see. Assistant. Total numbers, I think that would be.
Tell you what the rate is. Conversion.
Experience says 20, before it says 40.
You see that? Next one.
Right, I know, but I don't know what 20 is in terms of this number. Like it goes cut in half, does that mean this is a 2?
For which one is that?
That's different for different, I have to go to this page and find that out.
Yeah, you gotta rip that page out.
Yeah.
Keep it in front of you.
But which category?
I'm really slow, I've only gotten to experience.
Okay,
This,
so experience on the assistant
third,
treasurer, I
okay,
was
so that's
suggesting a
three.
3. Yep.
okay, see, it didn't get cut in half. The points got cut in half though. Okay, sorry.
On the physical skills and effort, the assistant treasurer collector is a 3, but the treasurer collector is a 2.
Is a 2, and that, yeah, so
I just noticed that,
I
yeah.
wasn't sure which one was out of whack, but it felt like something was out of whack.
The
yeah,
assistant is higher than,
it doesn't,
But,
like.
but the question is, which one, should one go down or one go up?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, because if the treasurer collector lets the assistant would just be there lacking, if they have to do all the running around. Then that would be one thing, but I suspect that's not the case.
Right.
I suspect.
So
they're
physical skills,
Yeah.
It felt like it's good to me.
2, I agree.
yeah, they're not really. Other than files and boxes, yeah, they're,
Anything want to be
it
fun.
probably should be a 2 on the assistant treasurer collector.
So knowledge, skills and education are 2.
No, we're talking physical skills.
Oh, physical skills. All right. From a 3 to a 2.
Yeah.
Experience. That went down a lot. Five.
Interaction with others. What level is?
lost a lot of points,
I lost a lot of, yeah.
down 25 points.
So interaction with others,
Good ones.
dropping it down to a 3. 5 was the position requires considerable persuasiveness, resourcefulness,
Yeah.
discretion. The assistant treasurer does not do
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Agree.
Also, the assistant treasurer is not interacting on a regular basis with civic leaders, contractors, other recognized authorities. So that's why some major fixing.
Like they answer questions, respond to complaints from the public, banks, attorneys, and other interested parties concerning tax bills, so.
Sorry.
I'm just
That's
looking at the
what-
job description at the bottom.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So.
but that's what number, that seems to fit into 3.
yeah, that's answering because that one, number 3 does say contacts with service recipients, general public, employees, such as agencies, vendors, or banks.
More than ordinary courtesy.
Yeah. May be required to resolve complaints or deal with customers.
Yeah, 3 is probably the right one. Functionality 4, also seems to be right too.
That's
Even
good.
for efficiency.
the supervision given,
Confidentiality left it.
Makes sense.
the supervision.
So supervision is given like 3 to 1 probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the ones I checked. Kind of.
Too much.
And then more- the bulk
We're
of
sending you down to a 1.
from 3 to, okay.
I think it's pretty limited in that role.
Yeah, is it a 1 or a 2, I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, occasionally we had a. Maybe it was town clerk instead, where the assistant actually was the experienced person. And the person who had the role was it might have been a town clerk
You think of a
situation.
shop clerk, yeah.
That's probably town clerk. Cause that one of the things I was thinking about when I was looking at this is that after being treasurer collector. Lynn became the assistant treasurer collector. But we kept her at her same rate because it seemed silly to have the person she's training be the person who's making more than she does. And that was, I know that was like one situation. It might be something where we do it as a one-off. And it's it's a one-off kind of situation. But it just, I thought of that when I was looking at it.
The only reason I'm thinking 2 for supervision given instead of 1 is may assume the lead responsibility for superintendent. Does the assistant fill in with the treasurer's?
You're talking about supervision given, sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, they do assume that they take on the role of treasurer collector when the treasurer collector is not present. So yeah, so there's nobody to supervise still, whereas the treasurer collector does have supervisory responsibility as supervisors, but as far as responsibility of the department, they take on the department.
Yes.
so I would say that's a 2.
Right, now that's why when it said 3 and I read that last part, may increase division department entering accesses. That's
So we're given supervision given to 2. Curiosity, what was it?
was 3 before.
It was a 3.
So it went from 10 points to 5.
Or do they have direct accountability for quantitative and qualitative results of their work?
You're on accountability.
I'm still looking at the supervision given,
Oh, supervision given.
the one that you just reduced to a 2. I'm just reading 3.
No, because the treasurer collector verifies
So
They have to sign off on payroll.
So anything the assistant does, the actual treasurer collector reviews it.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, understood. You on to the next one?
So we're 343.
Or are we on accountability?
Yeah.
333.
We're at 338 now.
And you went up 5, we should really good. Move that to a 2, which is 5. It should be 343.
But we also dropped physical skills and effort to 20 points.
So what does that bring us to total?
333.
At this point, that number doesn't.
No.
That doesn't
Yeah.
mean.
Right,
Yeah.
sure.
I just like to keep track.
Yeah.
No, I'd like
No,
to
no,
do,
this is
no.
okay, you know,
Me
it's
too.
I want you on this committee and track it.
He's doing a great job, let me tell you. This is impressive.
All right, so the next, which we probably can do together, is operator labor, part-time and full-time.
Yep.
You'll see in the sheet that I recommended adjustments in knowledge, confidentiality, revision given, and supervision to provide agreed scope. Keith, would you say that the roles essentially are the same for all of these items, or should there be differences?
Full-time and part-time.
I come up with a little difference. On the part-time, the confidentiality would be, well, in both cases, they could come down, but they're not always gonna be the same. The experience doesn't need to be the same. The experience, I left the full-time as a 3 and the part-time as a 2.
Okay. So we'll take part-time down to 2 on experience.
What do you think of confidentiality? Because I also thought that.
I thought that was fine as well. Like I said, do
Yeah, I
part-time laborers regularly access department information and confidential information? That, I just don't know enough about their job. So
Since this, yeah, they don't
I suggested that they both go to 2.
choose. And that would probably be okay. There's not likely to have high confidentiality aspects.
Yeah. The only thing I was thinking, at least the 2, is because they are working with the superintendent and the senior operator specifically on any of those bids. So they are going to be aware of some of the conversations that happen. And that is internal conversation, so they may be aware, but they're not a deciding factor. They're not the holder of the information.
It's not like they're gonna do insider trading.
but it has some confidential information
Yeah,
for the effective disclosure.
I mean, even on the part-time operator, I felt the knowledge, skills, and education could be one step forward. They're
So-
gonna still need to have the same licenses, but may not have to have the same skill level, I guess.
In terms of experience or in terms of
So you move that.
knowledge and skills?
3 to 2.
No, on knowledge, skills, and education, I went from a 4 to a 3 on the part-time, and left the full-time as a 3.
oh, okay.
But what I was hearing you say was more like they don't have to have as much experience or a skill level that you might get with experience. But they have to have the licenses and the training and all of that. Has to,
Still needed the licenses, correct?
yeah.
Well,
So
that
the
might be
full-time went up by 15 points. And the part-time goes down with additional. Got a 2? What did you have 4 and 3?
I left the full-time at full under knowledge, skills, and education. I left the full-time as a 4.
Which is 60 points. So up 15.
From my,
Oh,
from his sheet. No, it's hard to keep track. And then you left,
and from his sheet, I left the part-time as a 3 then.
So is the part-time operators typically someone who has less experience, or are they just someone who's not working full-time?
They're not, certainly weren't working full-time.
Well,
Historically, it's been a lower hourly rate. The select board made an exception this past time with an employee that had been there for many years, offered to stay on board until a new employee was hired.
Yeah.
It was kept at that same rate.
Yeah,
Historically, that
Okay.
will always be the case.
yeah. I was remembering also from, maybe from earlier that, I can't get part-time people unless I pay them the same rate as full-time people, but that was probably a personnel committee meeting many years ago before we had done something like this.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah,
I think we're getting into a rate discussion, which we
Right.
probably should wait until we get
Yeah.
there. but
Okay.
yeah. We
Okay.
want to finish looking at the evaluations.
Okay.
Great.
all right.
Yeah.
Just,
Okay, so between the part-time and the full-time, you felt that there should be those differences in the knowledge and the experience, but otherwise they should be in line with one another.
yes,
Okay. So if that's true, and we do that, then the part-time is at a 341 and the full-time is at a 366.
correct.
part-time, 30, 40 minutes.
Yep. Big progress, we're halfway through. We never have to do this again.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Until the new position,
So is a backup operator like a rank above, an operator laborer?
the backup operator is the water department.
Is the water.
Water.
So what did they do?
That,
They are the backup to the water superintendent,
okay.
their assistant.
So but I was
that makes
comparing the
more
wrong,
sense. Yeah, me
the
too.
wrong things.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's, okay,
I thought they were
All
trying
right.
to kind of valve.
Okay, what's next?
So backup operator is the next one. In my evaluation, I suggested making adjustments to the knowledge, skills, experience, confidentiality, complexity, supervision given, and supervision scope.
What about even judgment and initiative? I went to a 3 on that, but
Okay. Let's see, judgment and initiative. I mean, you're probably right, because they're not setting policies and procedures, they're following policies and
Right.
procedures.
it's very limited on what.
Yeah,
It's basically only in the absence
yeah,
of water superintendent.
so we'll drop judgment to 3. Any other line items on the backup operator?
So that would put it at a
336.
336.
Okay, next up, the community development administrator. I had a few recommended changes here. Problem solving and skills. Adjust that to a 4, experience to a 3, interactions with others to a 4, and supervision scope to a 3.
that was,
Sorry, oh, sorry.
So problem solving goes down from 5 to something else.
Yeah. Go forward. Yep.
You just read them all.
I did, but I can repeat it if you want.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so problem solving was dropped to a 4, experience to a 3,
Uh-huh.
interactions with others to a 4,
Yeah,
and then supervision scope to a 3. Happy to answer any other
Yeah.
questions.
yeah.
Again,
What's your reasoning on dropping knowledge and or problem solving and skills from a 5 to a 4?
Sure. So the 5th degree would be that they require advanced training experience and understanding and complex knowledge. Ours is an entry level. They are not the town planner, they are not the engineer. So they have to have a strong understanding of planning and zoning, but certainly not the advanced training. We don't require a degree or a master's degree. So that's why the problem solving is more in line with a 4, also because they don't make decisions. The planning board and the zoning board is making the decision.
Okay.
They're providing some research to the boards.
Yeah, that was one of the ones I surveyed.
Could we talk about the interaction with customers?
Sure.
You reduced that one, 4 to, I'm sorry, from 5 to 4.
Yep.
Thought on that was, shouldn't the role be to deal with persuasiveness, reasonableness, discretion, negotiating to impact the decision of the community? You're shaking your head.
The CDA doesn't do that.
Yeah.
That's what the planning board and the zoning board will do,
Got it.
but they're not the ones that are.
They're not driving.
They're not making any decisions. The building inspector decides the permit, the planning board decides to grant a A&R, and the special permits are granted by the CDA. So they don't have that need to do those negotiations. They aren't part of the negotiation.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
And the sort of the grant writing and grant follow-up stuff. Because I'm more familiar with that position in kind of that side of it.
It falls under mine and the select board's direction.
Thank you.
And 5 sounds nice. Consider a little. Sway
Sounds pretty
short,
intense.
scratch.
Yeah. But if you're comfortable with the 4,
No, I think I
I defer.
you're probably spot on there.
Great.
Any other items that we want to talk on this one?
Right, so that is now a 356. No, yes, it stays at 356.
Next will be the assistant town clerk.
I'm thinking of it in the job description. Take out the word Topsfield.
What?
What? Upfield?
Yes.
He read the homework.
The job description, it has the word Topsfield. Topsfield.
That's funny.
Oops.
Yeah, and what's funny is this job description is from 2023.
I could see it's written, the structure of it is different.
It is. Oh, yeah, you're right. Topsfield is an equal opportunity employer.
I saw that.
I know people that used other documents, so that probably is what happened here when that was approved. Wait a second, didn't this committee approve this?
For my time.
I don't think that's what we approved.
I'm straightening a problem before I leave.
Thank you.
Yeah, a can of worms. Yeah, there's.
Personnel policy was,
Personal policy, that was last year.
Oh, I
Yeah, I
forgot.
can remember
Was it
who it was,
Berlin?
the Conway maybe?
no, it wasn't local.
Was it Berlin?
It was not local,
Burlington, no.
Something weird though.
famous.
The town clerk one, the one I circled was confidentiality, because the assistant town clerk is a higher number than the town clerk. And I don't know that they should be different. My suspicion is they should both be fours.
Yeah, I noted it on the back one because I thought that was too loud.
Yeah,
Well,
and it's not consistent either.
Wait,
So I know we're looking at assistant town clerk,
yeah,
but confidentiality was 4 here and confidentiality is 3. Why is it lower? Don't they both
Oh.
handle?
yeah, in
A lot
my
of things.
recommended adjustments, town clerk, when we get to it, is upping the confidentiality.
Okay, so you're saying up?
Yeah.
Okay,
Because they do have to deal with a
I thought-
lot of personal.
exactly. I thought the same thing, that it should at least go up to 4.
Yeah. But, knowledge and skills, the only adjustments were under knowledge and skills, complexity, supervision received, given, judgment, and accountability. In the end, it puts the assistant town clerk at the same point as the community development administrator.
Somehow just feels really.
I looked at
they get there a different
a
way.
few of those. Like the judgment and initiative, I wrote the word elections next to the number 5 that was there. If only I knew what the actual question was then, because in judgment and initiative.
So-
Like for the assistant town clerk, the difference would be
Adjusted down to 4.
adjusted down to 4 is what
Yeah.
you're recommending.
There are still supporting those type of things, but this is saying that they're required comprehensive knowledge and activities, considerable judgment of work independent and to formulate decisions regarding policies, operation plans. 4 might be a little high, but they do act in place of the town clerk. So
Yeah.
if the town clerk is not present, let's say for a town meeting, then the assistant town clerk does have to make some judgment and then take initiative in those rules.
Right, and so I was reading like 5, it did seem a little bit high, but then I wrote elections. Because sometimes they might be in charge of an election, and maybe that's why I put ... after it, because it wasn't. That wasn't clear. The supervision are given. The election workers are being supervised.
Yep.
So supervision given, though, and I thought 3 was there, but you lowered it. And
Supervision given, I gave a 2. Because the job description shows that they support the supervision of those election workers, but the supervision is still under the town clerk, but they are supporting the town clerk in supervising all workers. And that's why, like, in 2, it says may assume relief responsibility for a supervisor. So again, when the town clerk's not there, they step in as the town clerk and supervise.
given. Supervision is limited distinction. Supervision. Okay.
Any other? Are we good with the recommended adjustments?
I define.
I feel like I am.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on. Doing both of Jess's positions back to back.
Get it?
Yeah.
Now the admin assistant for the select board. I felt that the evaluation here was pretty tight. The only adjustment was the knowledge, skills, and education. And my recommendation here was adjusting that to a 2 based on the job description. We don't require a bachelor's degree. We do require a high school education with a recommendation for associate's degree. But that was the only thing that I suggested. But again, we can further adjust to.
Oh, okay, it's just not red.
Oh, Is it not?
All right, see,
Nope, it's not.
I'm overly reliant on the color code, clearly.
Oh, I colored the wrong column, that's why. I colored complexity.
I was trying to
Yeah, complexity.
make that be.
Yeah, that was,
Oh, okay. So that was, same. Yeah, the interaction with others,
That's the
that
one
I
that's
completely agree with that.
Yeah.
With that.
any
Yeah. I don't-
other thoughts on?
Yes,
Or rate?
No,
I'm good.
As well.
We did, police officer last time.
Yep, so I just highlighted what we updated in on both the
Okay.
police officer positions.
Okay,
So we had adjusted for the part-time police officer, we adjusted that.
knowledge and education.
Knowledge, adjusted that to a 4.
Yep.
Interactions with others, we increased that to a 5.
Correct.
Supervision given, we adjusted that to a 2. Those were the 3 line items that we adjusted last time, and so I just wanted to make sure you saw what items we had changed.
Yeah, that tracks.
Good, so it's 386.
So 386.
Jim has a question.
Pete, I could just make an argument as far as the experience goes. Over three months, including up to 1 year for related experience, we're looking at almost a year before they can work. So I know it goes to the knowledge and training as well, but if you look under experience, basic knowledge, training, and education is part of the experience. So to have them at the lowest level of experience to get in, be able to work as a police officer, I still just think that's low in the sense of, again,
But
they have to
that's experience
undergo.
to get in the door.
What's that?
That's experience to get in the door.
But they can't work as a police officer until they have almost a year's.
But
worth
we're
of
gonna be
experience.
paying them for that whole year, right? Yeah, okay, so that's,
Yep.
right. So that's
If they
that's
don't,
where,
if they don't go to the academy, then they can't be hired. So there's a lot of those things that come into play.
To Jim's point, similar to Susan's earlier question, what experience do they have to come in to
right,
the role with, but also if there's a required training
Right.
post
Yeah,
employment, like I mentioned.
'Cause I
the
thought,
top of the
yeah,
School
yeah,
or whatnot,
right.
we can add that into the total experience.
okay. No, I thought we had made the opposite decision last time we talked about that, and that's why this one went down to what it was at. So, sorry about that.
No. I mean, this is the first time now we're talking about it as we go through this experience, because this is the first time that we're hitting a position that has post-employment training requirement.
If we go to.
No, I mean, at the last meeting, we
Oh,
went
no,
through,
oh, no.
we went through these positions.
Oh, you're right.
That, and,
No, I just meant, versus tonight, when we first explained the
Right.
experience thing, was Susan had asked the
Right.
question.
but we had, yeah, I was still basing it on what
So-
how we talked about it last time.
So I guess discussion then.
If we go to a 2 on the experience, it ups it 5 points, which would make it a 391 instead of 386.
I think we should, include that time, which means it goes up.
And we'll have to do it for both part-time and full-time.
Because
I think that's
we did for both,
Full
right?
time it should be
It's that it
minimum of
training
2
is needed
anyways.
for both. Part-time, full-time.
Oh, yeah, it's the very same requirement.
Yeah, that's why-
It's the
that's
post
what-
standard, they have the exact same thing. In addition to psychological exams, physical evaluations, all the other stuff that goes along with just getting hired as well, so they, as far as physical skills and that.
So,
So it's a 10 for both.
I would leave them as a 2 or 10 for both.
but I'm at a 2, okay.
Yeah, no, they're at a 1.
We can move it to a 2.
You're
so
saying move it to
Yes.
391 and 426.
391 and 4.
I just
426.
feel like we litigated this already.
We did.
We did.
So that makes
Came to a different conclusion. So I'm not having another meeting on this.
No, we're done with that.
I think we're in a good place with that.
For me, the previous discussion helped me understand it better to,
Right.
which is why.
I still don't know which one is really right. So that's,
well, we've certainly.
because I think like, how would somebody reading this and coming up with, starting with no, except it's a job description, so.
It's a job- it's a-
And so do we
Well,
go with the job description?
That's true for all of these positions. Everything, all the details are in the job
Yeah,
description.
We certainly have.
Yeah,
And is
taken care of the-
is that in the description of the officers? I imagine it might be.
If not, it should be.
We go back to senior operator.
so
that would be-
just for example, let's see. Under part-time police officer, high school diploma or equivalent must meet minimum requirements of the Mass Criminal Justice Training Council for the part-time police officers must pass semi-annual handgun qualification and hold current first responder, first aid, and basic respiratory CPR valid. Driver's license, excellent, efficient. Non-tobacco product user. These don't help. Successful annual participation in drug testing program. Knowledge of law enforcement principles, procedures, techniques, and equipment is helpful.
Yeah.
Ability to learn applicable, that's ability to learn, ability to maintain good working relationships and experience with their community policing.
No. So when it says, must meet minimum requirements of Massachusetts Criminal Justice Training Council for part-time police officers. Is that the academy?
Yeah, that's a
So
reason.
then what's the training that's after that?
Is that also required?
Is that,
It's required by the department, by the town,
right,
so that's an additional 350, but
is that,
3 months up to a year is category 2.
it's, but that's not anywhere in the job description.
And
But that 6 months academy is,
The 6 month academy is, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the additional, so
yeah, so
We
that's
need-
why I'm looking at just up to a year, that just gets into the.
it's up to, I agree, but that should just maybe be in the job description.
But the
If that's
job
really a
description
requirement.
should require that they've already completed.
No.
It's,
The-
this isn't the right word.
It would be
They're
the
willing to
expectation that
complete-
somewhere,
Right.
like the
they're
town
willing to
clerk,
complete whatever training,
yeah,
So they don't
So-
need it to be hired.
right,
Yeah, the town clerk doesn't get
Right.
anything to be elected. And they're at a.
Right. No, I'm just saying, but maybe the town clerk's job description, it says they have to do that training. And here, it doesn't say they have to do that training.
What's that?
Can we put those on future agenda?
Yeah, any revisions to job descriptions have to come from the department head.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So department head does need to, if you have.
If you have things that you're
you have
actually
feeling
requiring
that
of
you-
people
yeah.
that are not
There are
in the job
new-
description, then
Because
we need to put
this
it in.
job description looks like it's from 2015.
Yeah, it's old and there's now with post and police reform, a lot of those things have changed, so.
We should update it.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right, it's on your plate, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why I'm bringing it up, because it's not
Well,
consistent with
okay.
where things are at
Thank you.
right now.
Okay, so
Senior operator.
Senior operator,
are we moving on from?
I believe we're in a good.
Okay,
Sure, unless you want to talk about more.
Yeah.
I know last time we only covered 5 things because of the.
Senior
We're
operator,
gonna go through all.
I think
Now,
we concur.
this is highway department,
yep,
all right, okay,
Senior operator labor.
all operators are highway except for that one backup operator.
right, and this one I compared to backup operator, because I thought. Backup operator.
So a senior operator is essentially one, is a step between the supervisor or superintendent and the
Right.
part-time operator.
Yeah.
Operator waivers.
Okay,
Yeah, he wants to change.
so here's a change,
So I made 3 recommended changes to experience, interactions, and confidentiality.
so it's knocking these those down by 1,
Sell it to Keith.
Interactions with others,
then my interactions went up.
you went from a 3 to a 4 on interactions with others.
Yeah, it looks like it.
So the reason was. They're likely gonna be working with the contractors, or you can correct me if I'm wrong. They're working with the contractors and still leading the operator laborers.
Yes, they're right in my absence, correct.
Yeah. So, and then they maybe, guess there's a question there, because it does say like may serve as the spokesperson for the department in your stead. I could go back and forth. It could be a 3. I'd look to the department head.
I have left experience at 4, but you got it down to it. 3.
Oh, experience?
Yeah, you put experience down to 3.
I did. That was based on the job description. The job description said. A high school diploma, 1 to 2 years of experience in public works, construction or maintenance, blah, blah, blah. So it says 1 to 2 years experience.
Yeah, which is
Which is why I did a 3, yeah.
3, okay, all right.
Confidentiality, I put it at a 2. As because they may be part of the conversations, but they're not a deciding factor. Still the superintendent, that's
Yes,
those
okay.
bids. Values,
Go forward with 2.
yeah.
The others with that. The only other interactions with another have
I have it as a 4.
4.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so that went up from the 3 to 4,
Yep.
okay. That tools out bad.
411. Yeah.
Good enough.
Okay,
I think so.
so now the full-time police officer,
Yeah, you already pushed them up as we're
the
done.
one thing I need to adjust is, or did I already?
Yeah, did you already list it? The
Experience.
Experience.
Done that.
I adjusted it to a 2.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay,
So 426.
426, yeah.
Yes, so it's 26.
Okay.
Very direct, budget director. Physical skills and effort has to be a 3.
Yeah. Yeah, I adjusted, or I suggested adjusting physical skills and effort, experience, supervision, scope, and judgment initiative. Physical skills and effort. A 3 only because. If they're doing any programming,
Physical skills and effort was already a 3 and 30.
oh, it was.
That, well, on the printout I had last time.
That is,
Physical skills, oh. Tell her, sorry.
Oh,
Damn it, where's that library? Library,
want to look at mine?
no, I'm gonna find mine.
so in a 3, they have to independently develop and successfully apply problem solutions. They have the work requirements may vary and could be unpredictable, require the ability to develop alternative ways for successfully completing the important work within the externally imposed constraints. The library director is handling the operation of that building, and any change in what might happen environmentally, patron wise, they have to make judgment calls. So that's why I felt like there is some additional problem solving recognition that needs to be applied here. I just suggested going to a 3 instead of a 2.
You're on number 3?
Physical skills and effort.
4.
I was reading the wrong one.
Yeah, I was like, where is that?
Physical skills. Sorry, suggested 3.
Yes.
This is, this is about actual stuff within the building. She does, if she is moving around boxes of books, there might be carts. I don't know. I had a slight feeling that there was a little more effort that the library director had, but we could keep it at a 2.
Well, is this the one I moved it to a 3?
I had moved it to a 3 because originally we had the associates as a 3, but then we've dropped them to 2.
Yes.
I think it's a 2.
So move it back to a 2.
Job is largely mental rather than physical.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
some of those John Le Carre things are pretty heavy. Shelf, but I don't think it
Leave it at
needs the 50 pounds.
I agree.
Yeah,
Okay.
So physical skills. That's 8, 2, so it's down to 20.
Experience, I would adjust it to a 3.
Mhm.
1 to 3 years of experience.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That was one of the
Which
ones I
is-
noticed. That
Which
was
is
out of line.
correlates to the job description.
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought on these, the library ones, they were not very specific about how much. Because I think when I went, I can see why they did 2 on the experience, because it's the only post that specifies something around 2 years' experience. When I looked at the job description.
You're talking about the job description for the other position for less.
We're very unspecific, like you didn't need any experience.
Yeah.
Literally, for those. And this one actually was the only one that said anything near the library director job description. Bachelor is required. So does that mean 4 years of experience? No. This is certificate, considerable knowledge, at least 2 years of relevant experience required. So it's the only one that had a number.
Right.
And it's the 2, not the 3. Right, 2 years doesn't get us into that next bucket. So I don't think that's right, that,
Sorry, confused where you're going.
well, okay, so where it's going with this is on experience, is number 5. Okay,
Is in
1 to 3.
Is 1 to 3 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, then maybe I'm just read my note that this one did 2 years does fall into number 3. Okay, sorry, I was confused. Thank you for putting up with
So
that.
we're good with the 3?
Yes, we're good.
All right. Okay.
So this should have been, great, okay.
The other categories I suggested changing were the supervision scope and the judgment initiative, moving those to 4s. Supervision scope, I was saying a 4 because she does, the library director does have to develop job and task requirements. Is responsible for the completion of those tasks within the building, but does not rise to a 5, which develops programs, job requirements, operational goals. That's the order of the trustees. The order of the trustees does that. So I think the library director is 4.
I think those are both accurate.
Well, programs, like the programs are like activities. I think, because that's the library, and I think.
It still have to be approved by the trustee.
Yeah, and I think they mean it differently for programs, not actual. Like concerts or things like that, the way in here when they talk about programs, I'm not sure that's what they're envisioning.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, the library director can certainly propose otherwise, but
yeah,
in
okay.
essence, the trustees
Yeah.
and some full
And
person.
they do the heavy lifting in terms of actually interacting with people, making them happen.
The
But it's
director,
the director, but You're saying the trustees are the ones approving it, that's the difference, okay.
Yeah. And judgment at a 4.
Agree.
Okay. Any other discussion on the library director,
This would go to 419.
419?
That takes into account to the experience going up from 2 to 3.
Yep. A lot of adjustments here. The first one suggested changing the knowledge to a 3. If you looked at the job description, you'll notice that it is an elected position, and it acknowledges that with an elected position, we cannot require experience or knowledge, but the description does say, however, it is highly recommended. And it does give a recommendation as far as what knowledge and experience should be provided. So based on that job description, the knowledge, I was suggesting at a 3 because it recommended a high school diploma at a minimum, which is a 3. And if we were to ever to turn this to an appointed position, we wouldn't have to, we would fall in line. We would just have to edit that job description now, but it would still give us those basic recommendations. We could now make the requirements. Problem solving, adjusted this to 5. The reason was requires advanced training, experience, understanding of complex body of knowledge, intellectual discipline, including the ability to independently evaluate the information, the events, requires strong interpersonal and communication skills. Town clerk is responsible for administering or overseeing the general bylaws. They look over a lot of Mass General law, have to apply that Mass General law to our bylaws. They are the front face really for the town. And they have to make a lot of judgment calls and problem solve on the spot.
Agree. Yes.
I have it as a problem as well.
Experience, I suggested changing that to a 3, again, based on the job description recommendation of, I believe it was 3 years of experience, of municipal experience. So that would fall in line with the 3rd degree.
And again, being elected, it may result in 0.
Right,
Correct.
Yeah.
We can't control that.
we can't control that, no.
So
But if we're going off what the recommended is,
I
yeah,
agree.
yeah.
Okay.
Interaction with others,
Is that?
Yeah.
is
I
that
have it
fine?
as a 6.
6.
Our town clerk is the one that gets contacted by representatives, governor. They're actually as opposed to the government, the town clerk does get.
So the legal
direct-
front end.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
All right.
they do have to deal with a lot of agencies. So, yeah, I suggested 6. Confidentiality,
Should be there.
That's gotta go.
Definitely, definitely.
That's got, it's not.
I suggested a
Raised it.
4.
I think a 4 is what I have, yeah.
They do handle a lot of confidential material, but I wouldn't put it to the level of the full and complete access to all municipal confidential material.
Great.
Great.
Complexity. Adjusting that to a 3. Assignments are involved in evaluation and interpretation of factors. They look at those legal requirements, general law and mass general law. They have to evaluate facts and data. They're dealing with the polls, the elections. I felt that the complexity and the varying elements that they have to deal with fell into a 3, but
I'm good with that.
I just feel like every time I go in there and whenever I've gone in to ask Lynn a question about anything that seems like it ought to be simple, it just turns out to be so much more complicated. And arcane.
Yeah.
So I was okay with the complexity level that was there. But the four, but like, it's not, I mean, it's just like stupid complex because laws are stupid complex, right? It's not, for example.
Say that again?
It's stupid complex.
Laws are, it's our day-to-day activity.
Right, no, I
And I
mean,
wanna
it's,
rewind it.
like, it's complicated, right? And like with the voting, like you had to do the sheet and then you had to do and then you add up the, and then you, and it's like nothing was simple or straightforward. You know, and various times asking questions about running for office and does this count as a this or that? There's just like always more stuff and more detail. It maybe isn't studying trends in the field for application, assessing services, and so maybe it's just that the third degree might be the right place to put it, but I just want to express my sympathy for the level of complexity that there is in the rules that the clerk has to follow. And has
Is there
to help
any other
people
discussion from
understand.
other members on that?
Else feel
That all sort of falls under interpretation of the factors and conditions or unusual circumstances,
Yeah,
I don't know,
as aggravating as it may be.
yeah.
I don't know if it's in the job description, but assessing services and recommending improvements and devising new techniques for application of the work seems to be something that the job does, looking for better ways to do things. Which is under 4.
Does the town clerk will actually make modifications to a workflow?
Not to workflow, and the procedures that they're following is based on the legal requirements. There might be some nuance to how they can go about it, but
They don't have the ability to independently make modifications, to the process.
Not necessarily because they are following Mass General law,
Yeah.
usually
Yeah.
they're following
Yeah.
to a T what is
Yeah.
needed, so.
Correct.
it's defined for them. They have to look up every definition.
Yes,
and
but it
all
is
of those
defined,
procedures, but it is already
Yeah.
outlined for them.
I mean, it might be that the thing I'm getting at is really somewhere else. In here.
So what do we feel, 3 or 4?
Great.
Great.
Okay.
I can live with that.
Okay,
If you look at
Okay.
complexity,
Well, that's what I thought we're talking about complexity.
Good
I was
work.
reading. Yeah.
it's been a long couple hours, everybody.
All right. Okay, we'll be adding in 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah?
Supervision scope.
Just kidding, just kidding.
Scope.
Supervision scope, I suggested a 5. I don't know where it was before.
Was that 4?
Was that
Okay.
for?
Assigns objectives, projects, manages the complete within a budgetary constraints, responsible for department and municipal wide accomplishments and budgets. That one, a little wonky, regularly evaluates employees and or performance of other supervisors. I mean, they don't evaluate other supervisors, but they do evaluate employees and volunteers. They are handling budget constraints both within their budget, but their revolving accounts as well. That's true for most of the department heads. There was some reason why I kind of felt like it was more of a 5, but I'd be happy to keep it at a 4.
Well, develop the dog of the year program. I think that,
I hope my daughter wins.
I don't have a dog and I'm excited about the dog. of the year.
We went,
She gets license #1, that'd be pretty cool.
we sort of gave a little in on the complexity.
Yeah,
Let's leave the
Maybe if we
Yeah.
scope
leave it
in
at 5.
Yeah. Good.
I agree.
Okay. So scope will be 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other adjustments in this position?
So this remains unchanged.
474?
Yep.
Okay. Next up is the town accountant. Um. New changes here. Knowledge and skills. I suggested it be a 4.
Yeah, one's at a 5.
The reason being, we only require a bachelor's degree. We don't require a master's. I'm not sure why they gave it a 5. And it actually falls in line directly with the definition of 4, which is specialized field of accounting finance.
Oh. It's
Yeah.
it's specified,
So my recommendation is that be a 4 based on that.
Okay.
Experience. I adjusted that to a 4. That's because our job description says. Five years of experience in accounting and financial management.
Oh, see,
So
5 is on the cusp there. No, including
Include
5
5
years,
years.
overtime.
yeah,
Okay.
so that's why I was saying 4 on experience.
Yeah, it wasn't 7 to 10 for sure.
No.
Yeah.
The way they keep up. I don't know that I don't think we had a job description developed for town accountant when they were doing this evaluation, because we didn't approve this until
Yeah.
March.
Um,
So they were probably working off of other descriptions.
yeah.
Supervision given. Adjusting that down to a 2. There is no other staff. But they are monitoring how other departments are using the money, but they're not necessarily supervising them. So they don't have the responsibility of those costs and methods and personnel, but they are still monitoring it. So I felt the 2 was appropriate. Supervision scope, adjusting that to a 3. Regularly reviews the job performance tasks, essentially what's happening in those other departments on a monetary basis. May develop work requirements and responsibility to ensure job and projects are complete. It's still just the department of 1 currently. So I felt scope was a 3, only because the town accountant does have some heavier responsibility in the oversight as a check and balance to those department spends, and anytime submittal goes in for a bill of payment.
Yeah. And it seems like 4 is different skills, different things. And 3 seems right. On scope.
Yeah. Are we good for 3 then?
Yes, yep.
Yeah.
Judgment and initiative. A 6.
Yeah, that's really high.
Yeah,
They do have a major monetary role for the town.
Oh, yeah.
A lot can go on.
Yep.
I have been organizing this payment. Nature,
They still fall under my
So
like
yeah.
board's direction, so it doesn't quite hit the 7, but
but
they do have
the
a significant.
major functional
Yeah.
segment is the word that puts it into the.
Yeah. And then accountability. Similarly, not quite to the level of 7, but certainly a 6, because their potential errors in judgment could have an immediate and long-term adverse effect on the municipality's operations.
Hey, accountability, practically, same thing.
Any
Sorry, I'm
other?
a little busy here.
Any other thoughts or adjustments that we should make on that position?
So that's a 487.
Yep.
Agree.
Water superintendent. Only a few adjustments here. Knowledge and skill, reducing that to a 3. Our job description shows that they don't require their water superintendent. high school graduation and at least 1 year of experience. So based on a high school graduation or a high school diploma, that's a 3. So I suggested adjusting that to a 3. Similarly, adjusting experience to a 2 because we were asked for 1 year of experience for a superintendent. Problem solving and skills, on the other hand, I suggested a 6.
Yeah.
Because of the direct responsibility and the fact that they have to make some immediate judgment calls when there is a problem with the water system. It is not something that they can sit on.
They can't.
Then the only other adjustment I was suggesting is under supervision received to a 6. The reason being that they are essentially working independently. May receive some general guidance from their commissioners, but they're expected to be self-directing.
Yeah,
Periodic progress reports may be given, but otherwise review is given only or primarily to the end results. So really, the superintendent is responsible for working independently, going back to the commissioners when there is a need.
Supervision given though, I would say it drops to a 3.
You think should drop?
The only reason I say that is it's the same thing when we talk about the backup operator, there's the water superintendent is by that person is by themselves all day long, not directing anyone.
Okay. They don't work,
They don't
the backup operator never is there with them.
Only when that person only works, I believe, is when they're not around. Maybe a little overlap, but it's not on a regular basis.
well,
That's
I was reading number 4, maybe I was reading it differently. Light direction control monitoring of a major division. Highly technical section. Multiple operating division or department. So I thought it was a highly technical section that this person's in charge of. Now, they're not in charge of other people, but they are.
Are you on number 11?
We're on
Supervision
supervision given.
Number 11.
Yeah. Yes, sorry. Includes responsibility for service delivery results. Personnel action, workforce and job planning, budget administration, and cost control. So they don't have any people, but they have responsibility for the service delivery results and the budget administration, cost control. And
Isn't
in a way,
that
planning their own.
The commissioner responsibility of the budget cost.
I don't know.
In
So
the
maybe it
end,
is. Maybe
yeah,
it
in
is.
the end, all of us have to report to our boards. You guys, the end,
Yes.
cost control.
Okay.
I could go back if I
Yeah,
don't want 3 or 4.
See, when I read the 4, that sounded right. And the words that were popping out was the highly technical, the service delivery results. I mean, people aren't gonna complain to the commissioners, complain to the water superintendent. But I could be wrong on that. It could be that they ought to complain to the commissioners, not to the superintendent.
I'm leaning with Joyce towards 4, because the last line in 3 is may act as division department head during absences. Meaning the assumption is that they are not acting as the head.
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So leave it at a 4.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion on the super?
So,
It stays at 5%.
I don't know the total, but
Treasurer collector.
Treasurer collector. Suggesting a few adjustments here. Knowledge, again, this points back to the job description, treasurer collector. associate's degree is the requirement. So that's why I suggested reducing or making this a 3. Uh,
Yeah.
Problem solving, adjusting that to a 5.
And that. See, he's right.
And that is because the treasurer collector is also doing MLR investments. And so they're making some judgment calls, they're having the problem solve. They have to have that advanced training and experience with treasury and collections. Evaluating new information, events, or circumstances that could have a monetary effect on our accounts. Because the treasurer does actually handle our bank accounts. They do have to have a strong interpersonal communication skills because they are interacting with a lot of outside entities as well as employees. So that's why I felt it was a 5.
Great, check, yep.
Yeah, good.
Experience, I suggested changing that to a 4. And that's because in the job description, we require 3 to 5 years
Yep.
of experience.
It's in line with the job description, definitely.
Yeah.
And then we don't have any other training that we require of them after that, not on job description anyway.
We encourage certification through the Mass Municipal Collector and Treasurer program, but it's not a
That's not a
requirement.
requirement.
Yeah. Interactions with others, suggested changing that to a 6.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Supervision given a 4.
I agree with that. That was the suggestion I had.
Okay. Judgment and initiative, a 6.
Okay.
Again, similar to the accountant,
Mhm.
significant, they have to make a lot of judgment calls on monetary. And accountability, again, same thing. They're controlling our accounts, could have potential long-term adverse effects.
Okay.
Any other?
504, can we change 11? Supervision given.
To 4.
To 4.
For 20 points.
And a few others went up, like 6 went up, 13 went up, 14 went up, 3 went up.
So it should be 514.
5, 4, 10. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Fire chief. A few recommendations here. Knowledge, I suggested at a 4.
That's what I heard.
Okay. Everybody else okay with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Adjusting experience to a 5.
Yes.
Good.
Is that what that's consistent with the new job description?
With the job description, correct. We don't have a new one, but yes.
Well, I feel like.
We should.
Yeah.
Yeah, because our experience requires a minimum of 6 years of firefighting experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then supervision received suggested updating that to a 6 because they're primarily acting independent.
Yeah.
Good.
Any other adjustments? Good on this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Highway and building superintendent. A bunch of adjustments here. On interactions, I felt that it should be at a 6. Based on the newly updated job description last month. Because our highway and building is dealing with a lot of other agencies, primarily MassDOT, DEP, DCR. They also have to deal with building inspection and the inspectional services from the state. Because of the building's oversight. Any thoughts? You're in the role. Do you feel 6 is appropriate?
I think so. Yeah, definitely.
Confidentiality, I recommended going to a 4. It essentially has a high level of confidential information, but not necessarily the full and complete access to all
Right.
this full.
Don't have that whole.
Yeah.
Okay.
Supervision received and
Occupational risk.
Oh, do you want to look at that one?
The only
Sorry.
reason I say that, it's a 4, but all the other operators
Oh,
are 5s.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I
so,
think
yeah.
that's-
adjust that to a 5.
Yeah,
And it's this, you're working side by side, it's most of the time, so.
yeah.
So plus 5.
Okay. All right, so occupational risk. Good on complexity.
Yes,
Supervision received suggested 6. Which is the highest level because they do act pretty independently.
Yep.
Supervision given 5.
Yeah, I was surprised. It was-
Yeah, the department head, that seems like the right.
Yeah. And the only reason why not a 6 is because that one is the person who takes on the responsibility of the entire municipality if the CEO, which is the select board, is absent. So
Most
I
days.
think he's like 3rd in line or
For the
4th in line after the police chief. I don't know if we have a succession plan. But so a 5 on given.
Yeah.
Yep.
Supervision scope. Suggested that be a 5.
Yeah, I think that seems right.
Yeah, it's fine, good.
And then the only other adjustment was accountability. At a 6, similar to the town account treasurer. Significant service impacts. Such our transportation system. But even the buildings are town buildings.
Yeah.
So I felt that it needed to be a 6.
Yep.
Do you feel
Yeah.
that's appropriate?
I think that's in line.
And just a question on that point on supervision scope, comparing it to the fire.
We already passed that one.
No,
We don't go backwards.
no.
Yeah, what's your question?
For, we had the fire chief 1 step down from the, for highway and building superintendent. And then below the chief of police.
Which one?
Supervision scope.
Shouldn't those all be 60 points?
So,
And they also fire.
Wait, are you suggesting increasing the fire chief or reducing the highway?
Increasing fire.
Okay, so you're
Just for
bringing us back to
consistency
another
between-
vision that we already passed. Come on, Jerry. Do we feel that the 2 positions should be at a 5?
Fire chief, highway, and chief of police, I'm suggesting in that section. Would all be the same ranking.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
agree
your
with that.
fire chief regularly, yeah,
Is responsible for department or municipal line commissions and budgets.
yes, that's what that fire chief should be, fine then.
Okay,
Good.
so we'll adjust the fire chief's supervisor.
That'll go to 5 and
scope.
4. Thank you for
Okay,
your talk.
indulging.
I didn't catch it until we went to the next one.
Yeah, see.
I know we're not supposed to compare, but sometimes it really helps to see another one because it's like, oh yeah, that's the
Yeah.
same.
Like our department is
Should be consistent.
bigger than it's, that's in a different part of the supervision.
Right.
What's our new total for fire chief?
594.
I've never.
Thank you.
So back on highway and building super, any other adjustments?
No,
Okay, so a 609. Now, police chief,
Oh, we did that one already.
we did, but I think I
It's just, I know,
double checked some of the job description items,
okay,
Oh, so what's noted red here is what we changed last.
what we changed last time, but also what I may have adjusted to. Because I went through the job description just to double check. So knowledge, so the adjustments are on knowledge, skills and education, a 4. Yeah.
problem
My,
solving.
my only question was on the accountability.
Accountability should be higher.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I don't dare ask again about the fire chief. At least let me catch the policeman.
At least, should be at least a 6 on accountability.
Correct. Thank you.
Exactly.
Okay. Any other than that, any others that you?
I was just looking through the physical, that we talked about last time. And like the ones that are red here. I don't remember which of those are ones we discussed last time.
I don't remember discussing the.
No, we talked
We
the
did not.
part-time and full-time.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is our first one.
That's our first. See, I was just making that up.
My one argument would be physical skills is the same requirement as the actual part-time and full-time police officers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's there's some office duties in there as well, but I still have to lift the same people, we still have to chase the same people, we still have to do the same thing, it's a work.
I mean, it should be at a 50-point
It's
versus.
not an administrative
Yeah.
position.
Yeah.
What was that?
Which one?
Yeah.
Number 4.
It was 5 on the sheet I took home yesterday.
I could also roll in my
We'll
chair.
put it back to a 5.
Oh, I have it.
Well, that'd make it
Bills.
a total of 637.
Okay. Yeah, good.
I hate to be that one.
No,
You already got the highest number.
No, it's not, it's not the police chief one, it's just going back to the problem solving for the officers. They're at the 20. I've been listening to your discussions about problem solving with other positions. And I don't think, based on all the discussions you've had, it seems like police officers fit into the next category up for problem solving skills, because they do require advanced training in use of force and de-escalation. There's advanced training for that. So I think it falls more under category 5 than 4, but that's that one discussion.
You mean point level 5
Yes.
versus 4?
I think this is one we did discuss a lot though. And the advanced training, I took that to be like the master's degrees.
We didn't discuss problem solving because I read line, underlined the ones that we discussed,
Okay.
and that wasn't one of them.
Okay, so the chief is bringing us back to the part-time and full-time police officers.
Bring it back.
Thank God it's somebody.
Problem solving, we're not going back anymore. But problem solving, the question is whether these 2 positions should be moved from a 4 to a 5.
Yes.
The ability to independently evaluate new information, events, or circumstances, synthesize this information, evaluate alternative outcomes, apply and direct the successful application of their resources. That feels right.
But 4.
So I would not agree with increasing it. Increasing it would put it in line with the same problem solving points that we give to department heads.
Yeah.
And because 4 also
It
sounds
gives
like
them
this.
the same, which doesn't make sense.
But looking at the problems that we're solving, that's the issue that I have.
Right, well,
You're solving individuals' problems that are gonna have lifelong impacts on their well-being. It's not just making a decision about a budget item or, something like that. I mean, we are professional problem solvers. This is what we do.
Yeah, it is a
Yeah.
different kind of
And in the-
workflow.
but in the 4th degree, it says the ability to successfully apply complex concepts from a body of knowledge or a specific discipline. So you're
Okay.
talking about specific kinds of training. So that is in the 4th degree.
But that's not requiring the training. guess it requires strong understanding. Fifth degree requires,
What you're taking-
experience.
What you're taking is the problem solving and you're applying it to what the end result is, which is more on the accountability. And what the end result has in the impact on, but based on the decision made.
If you move them into 5, then it's like they're all department heads.
Yeah,
And I don't see that, that's,
you're equating it in a, they're not. You're trying to move it where it's not apples to apples.
I agree, it's not.
He's saying the job isn't apples to apples.
Right,
Yeah,
can't, I mean,
it's not apples.
but you can't say that their problem solving with it, that could have the impact, a long-term implication on that person isn't the same as. What was your example that you used? That was the minimus of the person or the role that you were applying to. Non-department heads.
Yeah.
Their decision making still has long-term implications, maybe not to an individual, but it still has everybody has long-term implications.
Yeah,
Right?
well, I agree, I agree. But from a police officer's perspective, they're the only ones that require advanced training and dealing with problem solving skills. They have advanced levels of training in the academy to become police officers.
So you're saying that all of these others don't have problem solving training in their education?
I don't know of any, but I don't know all their training. I'm just saying, police officers do require advanced levels of training.
I have problem solving training. And I just teach physics.
I think an operator laborer has problem solving training that they have as well in regards to their field operation too. I think a town or assistant town clerk had problem solving training. It may not be the same, but it is still, they're all getting problem solving training.
I'm not sure advanced training is what,
Yeah,
I feel like advanced training is something else.
I agree.
Would that have already,
And
That's why I'm saying
but it's because when I read.
It's not a 1 hour class on.
I know, I understand.
Yeah.
would that already be picked up? I'm sorry.
I feel like it's picked up on number 4 already.
I think that's also in number 2,
knowledge, skills, and education.
Because- outside of the town administrator, they're at the same level as fire chief, chief of police, highway superintendent.
We already went up on that.
They're the only ones that
Yeah.
aren't at that top tier management level. It has to have the extra knowledge. So I think
I
it
think
is
you
also
could say
addressed in
that
there.
that covers that, then.
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. Because it's twice the level of some of the other positions, which it should be.
right.
It needs to be recognized there.
Just making the argument, that's all.
I think your argument's well represented in some of the other categories. Because you're right at the top. The only one that's higher than the part-time and full-time police is the town administrator. In that knowledge base that needs to happen.
Knowledge, training and education, yeah.
Alright.
So are we good on problem solving on the part-time, full-time police
I
officers?
think it's,
In keeping it.
otherwise it's like department heads, and I feel like that's
Right.
not
Yeah.
the case.
I feel like that's where the consensus was going. Stick with it.
Agreed.
Okay, so we'll move ourselves back to police chief.
The only change was under physical skills, I believe. Oh, I'm sorry, accountability.
Accountability.
My argument, accountability. So that's at
37.
6:37.
Physical skills, we, yeah,
We moved it back. Yep.
which puts it at a
6:37.
Yeah, 6:37.
6:37, yeah.
Yep.
Any other discussion on the police chief?
Nope.
Then the last one is the TA.
On the sheet we had, there is an error on experience. where it had, if you look at the rate. They had a break, yeah, then you go to the sign factors. 3 is. Okay, that was right. For some reason I thought. No, experience is a 3 is a 20.
It's 20, that's what it says on, at least on this sheet. that's-
Somehow I thought it. I thought 3 was a 30. Okay. It's all set.
So the only changes are interaction with others to a 6, confidentiality to a 5,
Mhm.
and supervision received to a 6.
I had also questioned problem solving.
Sorry, what?
For the problem solving should be a 6 for this. Reading the description, I withdraw that.
The only reason I didn't suggest going into there is
Problem
the,
solving. Wait, which one you said?
yeah, problem solving.
Number 3.
It's at a 5 already.
Right now it's at 5.
And she was
I was questioning.
questioning whether it should be a 6.
We don't have a 6 on the problem. Oh, it's right.
Yeah.
I love the problem.
You can actually go to 7.
It's getting late.
Yeah, there's good.
Is
Sorry.
the reason that the town administrator in general is a general knowledge of a lot, but a master of nothing. And so it doesn't necessarily have highly developed knowledge of all of the departments. It relies on the department heads to have that highly developed knowledge within their departments and then provide direction. So that's why I didn't feel that it really rose to a 6.
As I said, I wasn't pushing for it, I just wanted to think about it.
Okay.
And I had that similar question of supervision given. Why isn't there a 7? He can't like do 6.5, can he?
Yep, that's
Operating plans, overall operation of the municipality. Conforming to the general objectives established by the governing body. So you get your directives from the select board and elected people. And make everything else happen. I mean, you're kind of more or less, you're supervising all department heads.
the only reason is I don't supervise the water department, the board of assessors, and the library. They act under separate,
Trustees.
yeah,
And,
separately elected bodies.
okay,
Library
It's
does
like
fall
every-
under a personnel policy, but not under my supervision.
and it's on, and. Okay, so it's just because those, like, so we would
There
never,
are some,
we would never have a town administrator at 7.
not unless you reorganize.
Well, you're 7 to be black belt, in my opinion.
None
That's
unless
not
you
the person.
reorganize, but
Not
under the
unless you're
current
reorganized.
organization of it. the
Town, we
yeah.
would never have 7. Okay,
We have a 427 point spread.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
so that,
and so
That
that's,
feels right.
you know,
and where did that come up, and one that land in the end, the town administrator one?
that's 624.
No change.
Yeah,
So
So the police chief is the high at
637.
Yeah.
637 and low is at 210.
So what we have now is, do you want me to print out the new grading plan? The new grades, which each one of these, it'll be easier for you to see how they get.
I think that would be good.
Yeah, so that we can now assign grades based on, what was it supposed to be about 25 point?
They are a 25-point spread or difference between each until you get to the higher ones. I think the others are 50-point.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. There's extra copies there too.
Okay.
Thanks.
So right now, interestingly, what it did is it put at least one individual in every grade except for grade 12. It's the only one that's the same, an individual, which is fine. Better than what we had before. But it doesn't mean that we can't, from your manual, that we can't change the score range for each grade level.
That was my initial.
We may well want to.
You're gonna have
I'm
to.
assuming we will,
You have to based on doing, right?
yeah.
It would help. Yeah, it would help.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's right.
Oh, this is where you want it?
Yep. Yeah, just the grade.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought you were printing out the.
Here, there were 3 copies of this. if you
Okay,
guys want
thank
that.
Thank you for grabbing that, Jen.
So yeah, so now you can see based on the revised scores. Wow, labor is not spelled right. Labor are, you can see what positions are in which grade levels. It's the printout.
And now we need to understand the points range.
Do you want that table reprinted?
That's,
The bigger table?
Yeah, I feel like I need the total scores to be able to add them to the sheet to see.
Oh, God, you're so
So
good.
either
Thank
with
you.
the table or can that column be added
Good.
to the sheet?
Too late to just score again.
No.
So
This is a pivot table, so,
got it.
well, I guess there is a way to do it, but regardless, it's getting
It's quick.
printed, yeah.
That's fine, that's, whichever was easier as well.
Yeah.
You're done with these.
See you're out there, come.
Printing out.
Yeah, no, that's the employee,
Oh, okay.
that's the employee. That was printed out. There should be 3 extras.
This level.
This is a new one of these.
Right.
I'll read that.
Or do we have?
There's no pictures.
One short.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Should I miscount?
Oh, that's all right. I can make a copy for you.
That's all right. I'll just do it for you. He doesn't need it.
Yeah, somebody hand to you there.
That's cool.
Yes, yes.
We've got a copy.
Okay, okay, yeah. I want to make sure.
That's collaborative spirit here.
if we were to do 50 point spreads, 50 point buckets for each grade, we would have 10 grades.
That seems more manageable.
Instead of 14.
Yep.
Like the bucket started 200 and ended at 650.
637. Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
200.
But like where the
Well,
I'm looking at like where do the breaks come, like in between constable and administrative assistant, there's a big gap. I mean,
if you go to 50 points in bucket number 1, you get spillover. Yeah, you're gonna have the custodian and the library custodian. They're now really technically gonna be bucket 2 number. At 258. Bucket 2, they moved down. Then bucket 3 is. But now if you go 50s. Bucket 4 people fall into bucket 3. 300 to 350. So the backup operator, treasurer collector, operating paper, part-timer, same bucket is the recreation.
Remember, these are, yeah, the 250 about who's in there together, their points.
No,
are
I'm just looking at the points, saying
Yeah.
they're gonna be in a,
So
now you
if
know,
we do
now you know points, you gotta figure out how to do the bucket,
right,
and then eventually money's got to flow and make sense. Because you're gonna have some people, I think, I haven't looked at it closely enough yet. Some people are in a bucket where that wage rate, they're already above the wage rate for the bucket.
well, we're gonna,
those are
I
gonna
know.
change.
yeah,
I don't want to change
Yeah.
it.
Well, I went through using my advanced skills at subtraction. And I was just looking at like, where are there big gaps? Okay. And just looking at the numbers, so I'm not even looking over the positions. The big gap, the first big gap comes between 225 and 248. Okay, the next big gap comes between 280 and 316.
Yeah.
The next big gap is between 316 and 333, but I could be talked out of that. But 333 to 366, that's a solid section. And then the next big gap is 366 to 391. Then 426 to 474.
You need 411.
No, I put 391 through 426 are all over.
Over through 426.
So 426 to 474 is where the next big gap is.
Yeah.
And then between 514 and 594. So like their natural grouping, if this were a bar chart, that's kind of where you would say, okay, the group
Yeah,
is
yeah,
your-
yeah.
your positions.
I'd just be
But
concerned about doing different number spreads
Points
in
between.
points, yeah, between each bucket.
It might not be that far different.
But because that's, so these positions are not the only positions you're ever gonna have for the history.
Yeah,
Right.
But sure, it's only 7 buckets. So there's buckets. But I'm just saying that I don't think we have to pick those.
Yeah,
I'm saying, isn't that interesting? We've got nothing between 514 and 594. So there better be an edge of a bucket there. That's a huge gap.
oh, yeah.
Like I wouldn't want
And
to,
that's why at 50 point increments, they do break that way.
and 50 starting at 637 and going down. 50 points.
All starting at 200.
Yeah.
Up to 250, and then 251 to 300. and 301 to 351. So when I do
Ending at
that,
650 or ending at 700?
it ends at 650.
Okay.
When I do that 50-point spread for each bucket, I end up with 9 buckets.
Uh-huh.
50 points,
Not counting.
Yeah.
200 to 650 is 450. 9 buckets.
Okay.
Got it.
So
Yeah, I was kind of.
5 positions in bucket 1. So admin assistant of other boards all the way to substitute library associate. Bucket 2 is custodian to transfer station attendant.
Custodian at 248? Damn.
Oh.
Sorry,
Well, that's administrative assistant.
that's. So the 248.
Yeah.
No,
So 258 to 280 is one group.
yeah, I understand
Okay.
where, if you count to 50.
Yeah.
Where those lines would be,
Okay,
but some of those, like, cut right through the middle of something,
such
right.
as,
such as. The one between 248 and 258, those are actually pretty close.
they're close, but
I mean,
does that matter?
I don't know, doesn't it?
No.
No, it
I
doesn't.
don't know that these.
No, because the
Yeah,
original
I don't
model
think
had
so
only,
either.
original
I
model only
think
had a
this
25
may
point
change,
spread.
but our scale needs to be.
Yeah, the scale should be consistent.
I think that's right, consistent on the scale.
Okay,
And as you revise job responsibilities, then they may then
They may
adjust
move.
here, and then you may have a bigger gap between your 248 and 258. Because we changed the
Okay.
responsibility, but you want to change the grading buckets.
Agreed.
okay, but in, like, within each. Bucket and step. The pay is all the same. So somebody who's. 248 is in. A lower place than
Correct.
someone who's at 258.
Because that person at 258 has more
And,
responsibilities.
oh, I understand, but not that much more,
No,
not
But-
that much more.
But that's gonna be true every line break that we suggest.
Okay,
That's all.
that's why I was saying the line break should be.
But
the
that's why
place
you
where we
need
have
to
gaps.
ensure that you have a consistent measure, and that's why if you are consistently applying points for each of the buckets. That's clean, and it's not being subjective based on how many points currently are based on these groups, because they could change.
Right, and you're gonna have to have,
Job supervise.
you have to have overlap in the wage rate range of each bucket.
And there is overlap,
Yeah, there are gonna be people in bucket, a higher bucket.
because you'll see
Yeah,
like,
I understand.
yeah, higher step isn't necessarily lower than the first step of the next bucket.
Right.
They don't overlap one another.
You're gonna have some people in a lower bucket that are at a wage rate of the higher. bucket. That's gonna, so you need to.
So, and that will depend on these numbers will also determine what step you might start on.
No, that's a policy that we have to decide.
Yeah.
Remember, we have to decide if
Oh.
that's
This
here,
was step one.
develop and finalize the step process proposal. Which we have to determine, are we taking steps based on your years of service in that role? Or is it every 2 years, every 3 years, it's dependent on a
Yeah.
review,
Well, you need to solve the bucket.
right?
But it sounds like
if you do the 50-point spread,
you do, I mean, it sounds like that's just been decided,
there's 9.
right? I mean, we don't wanna do anything.
What was
that's
the
under
original
right?
25 points until you got to the very top end, and then it was 50 points for those last 2 or 3 grades.
Because there is kind of a
Reason to
big,
change those numbers, why would?
Hmm.
What would be the reason to change what's already been provided by the consultant as far as how to set up?
Well, before we adjusted, that was this one
Yep.
here.
there's a lot of single
Yeah,
single person
single
or
person.
single job.
Okay. Just
Yeah.
expanding them.
So there's
That
more
was a
grouping.
lot of breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct, you don't need 14 buckets. I like the concept of 9. That's just a way to organize, and then it's a question of
Right, I mean,
what's the pay?
Okay, so
I like the concept at the moment of working with that 50-point.
Yeah.
okay, so are we good then? Is the committee good on like grading plan. Which, we're going to print out the new one.
If
I don't. Does Steve
Yeah,
mind?
scheduling wise, are we actually gonna get through the
You're
whole
on it,
agenda
man.
tonight?
Yeah.
Because that's gonna be an issue
Makes me
for
feel
me.
used.
It's already an issue for me.
Yeah.
So,
Love that for you.
Yeah,
I went,
the only thing is there any way we can agree to this 50 point? But then, is it up, could we have you then plug in the employees based on their years of service?
if we make the decision about that, that might be,
And have you send that out to us?
um,
What more do you need out of us?
good question.
'Cause I think if we get to this point, we decide how many years, if it's every other year to go up, we can make that decision. I know the finance committee needs numbers too, so I mean,
yeah,
That's the big issue,
right,
is they meet Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other thing that we needed to do was,
gotta do COLA.
yeah, we have to do COLA, we have to determine the step process, but also that pay scale and step scale was based on, 13 grades. I will need to, this might not be that difficult. Actually, it shouldn't be too difficult for me to do this.
Right, because you know what the new buckets are, you know what the old weight.
And I know what the new rate, yeah, the old rate.
You're just gonna wind up expanding the range.
I just have to make sure that the percentage change between each grade is a correct, between each grade is consistent.
With the 8%,
Yeah, that's what we were using, right?
was 8%, yeah, and then 2.5 steps.
Need to. Oh, yeah, 8%. Yep, thank you. And then 2.5 between steps. Yep.
2.5 between steps.
So I could do that.
Basically redoing this chart.
Yes, Yeah.
or
to a 9 grade scale.
is that the same as?
Yeah, that was the really old version, and then
This is the
I
newer,
updated their version, and we had both pieces of information in one
This is the
table.
newest version.
Yes, but there's not a new version.
New, the newest, and then the new.
The new.
You need version number 3.
So yeah, I guess the question is the committee okay with me doing that? Or do you want to meet again in order to review the revision to that whole table? That would be the biggest
Yeah.
piece I cannot do on the fly right now. I have to
You've got it.
do it.
No, I think my suggestion would be redo this chart. We have this chart and then circulate it, and we should figure out how to meet quickly.
Get it.
And then you,
You just have to have the problem is to meet
We have to
quickly, we have to
post.
post within 2 business days.
today is Wednesday.
Yeah, and so Thursday means if I was to post Thursday, the earliest we can meet is Tuesday. Right? Because we don't count Monday, I mean, we don't count Friday.
Well, you can post, you can do, we're just typically closed on Friday, so we
Oh,
say.
but if
send
I
the agenda.
post on
post
Thursday,
on-
I can post
We can
on
meet
Monday.
Monday.
There's no way just to
Oh.
continue the current meeting.
No, we have to post
We
for
have
it.
to repost the agenda
Yeah,
for.
but I could
Monday.
post tomorrow for Monday meetings.
Absolutely.
So if you're open to meeting Monday
I'm open Monday.
Yes.
to review
Not
that,
open with the.
I'm actually open Monday afternoon
I'm
too.
good Monday after.
5:45.
Did you print this yet?
not that one, yeah, not the new one, no.
Monday, the 28th, I can do
Okay, Monday the 20th.
And it's gonna be how early?
any,
What's your,
I need to be done by 5:30, 5:15.
Yeah.
We don't play 5:45.
I would,
What about 3?
Like
Yeah, we've
3
done it before. 3.
Yeah, 3.
I had to Zoom for that.
Yeah, we'll do Zoom.
that's fine.
We'll focus on just that thing, if you're open to talking about the step process.
Yeah,
Otherwise, I can always do that later.
Knock it
The
all out.
one thing I do want to talk about is the COLA, because I do need to do,
You gotta,
Okay,
so. The consumer price index did thankfully get updated with March values, and guess what? It went down.
Right, it's down quite a bit.
New England is now at 3.2 with the Boston Metro at 2.5, so we would stay with New England, which is 3.2. That's 3.2 New England, and then I did get feedback from a number of other communities about what they're recommending their COLA. Ashfield is difficult. Ashfield is doing a 2% plus $1 per hour on everybody's rate because they do not have a grading scale, a step scale. So they are doing a slightly different math to do theirs. Conway is doing 3%, Leverett is doing 3%, Northfield 3%, Shelburne 3.5%. That's everybody that responded.
So may I ask you just a general question on it? I came from private industry. We didn't use COLA at all. We used merit-based. So for example, the average I checked in with a couple of the old management companies I was associated with. The average might be 3%, but there are people that got 0.
Yeah.
People that got 5 before you even hit what the step is. And so I just wanted to understand, I'm not saying change process at all, but is it fairly typical in municipal government?
In municipal, you
Start with COLA,
do a COLA,
then
and in some
steps.
other communities do a merit-based increase on top of the COLA.
Yeah.
Typically, the merit-based increase is for those communities that do not have a step grade program.
Got
So
it.
they do look at, and they're essentially what they have to do is their town meeting appropriates a certain bucket of money for employee, I think sometimes it's called employee retention. Maybe and it's given to a bucket. And the town administrator applies that based on a merit system, and it does sometimes work out where if they got a 3 or less, they got no merit increase.
Correct.
Or if they got a 4 or 5, then it was calculated in, but it's on top of a COLA. The COLA is
So the
standard
step then
method.
essentially is merit-based.
A step is it's not merit-based because
more like length of service.
yeah, length of service.
And I'm not,
Like you said, the idea is you get better at your job as you get more practice in doing your job.
You get more experience.
You have
Yeah.
more experience, and so somebody
You should be paid more.
you should be paid more as you get more experience.
I
You're
understand.
doing better at your job.
Does that not create, I'm not suggesting that that's the case with any town employee. But if you had somebody that had COLA and was just sort of marginal and hanging out in terms of their performance, how is that addressed relative to these steps? I'm here 5 years. I'm not really into it. I'm not really working all that hard compared to my buddy who really wants to get aggressive, he or she. Wants to be aggressive in what they're doing and move themselves forward. That's the environment I'm used to.
So that's
That's
what,
why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, so you're mixing pay and the performance. Performance is still evaluated.
Yep.
Performance is still evaluated in
Right,
the annual assessment or the annual performance evaluation that can be done. Based on those performance evaluations, it is incumbent on the department head to do an employee improvement plan if that employee is not
yeah,
at least meeting standard. If they are not meeting standard, you put them on an EIP. And then if they do not achieve their EIP within whatever that time frame is, like 45 days or 60
get
days,
bounced.
you
Okay.
move on. Yes.
Okay.
So there are mechanisms.
I know, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, so you want to go back to your,
Yeah, I think evaluating merit is tricky.
Yeah,
it's a lot different in the public sector where everybody sees, whereas in the private sector, nobody, unless you go and tell everybody, nobody knows what the other people are getting.
it's not as prevalent now as that used to be. Now they put people in buckets and this is your pay range, depending on what the level of achievement you have in your job position. It's like level 1, level 2, level 3.
Right, but
Level 3 is all
yeah,
mixed.
and I guess I feel like we're not big enough
No, I understand.
to be able to establish
Yeah,
a
we do
merit
pull
system
every-
that's fair.
If it was not 5 or 9, I might want
Yeah.
to debate this social issue, but we need to make a recommendation to finance.
No, I'm just, thank you for your time.
No, I don't think that at all. I just meant I'm ready to get done what has to get done now and talk
Yeah.
about this bigger
Okay.
issue later.
So then, do we have enough information based on what we heard from Pete for what other communities are doing? Do we want to make a motion and recommendation for?
It's like Ashfield feels like we're in a fairly narrow range.
Primarily
3.5. I would go with the
3.5.
highest that we have full support. I wouldn't go down to 3. Finance will probably cut us to 3, but we started. No, I mean,
Not not everybody in the fight.
okay. I know.
No,
I just
I
feel
think
like we have good support for 3.5, if that's New England, and I don't think we start at 3. I will, I'd like it to be more than 3.5, but I don't think we'll be able to sell that. So that's my thoughts, but people may have different thoughts.
I think you'd have to go at least 4, and I agree with you. I think it's very important to take care of them.
Yeah,
So are we moving forward?
Somebody wants to make a motion?
Are we thinking 4? I'm all for it. I was just.
That's what Jerry said.
Start.
All right.
Nice knowing you in the community.
Devil's advocate, that may be the number we want, but do we think if we go in that high, it's gonna get pushed lower than we want? Versus if we went in at like 375, and I'm just making up
We did-
numbers
we-
here. it's
We
not-
have to justify whatever number it is. That's what.
And 1 percentage point or a quarter point on a $30 wage. It's nothing. I believe we can sell for it.
Okay, and then,
So,
because that is your job.
Yeah.
What we do.
Actually, it's the chairman's job. I'm just a member of the committee, but
you're one vote on the committee. I have no votes on that committee.
correct. I am but 1 vote.
I'm fine with going
So-
for it.
I mean, we don't tear people enough, so.
I agree.
I'll ask this again. Does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we advise a 4% COLA.
I'll second that.
Okay, and a motion made and second to propose a 4% COLA. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye,
In favor of what?
4%.
Oh, they were closing the meeting.
That's maybe
Yes,
the
I'm
next.
fine.
Do we need to decide the like 1 year versus 2 year for steps?
We could, or we can do that next time because I can do that
Let's,
post meeting.
let's see, I feel we can do that after you,
Okay,
Yeah, let's look at what we circulate, so.
the implications on, yeah, so.
I won't be able to show you the implication on each employee because I won't know what I should put into that step, but I can at least show you the grading.
Okay.
All
All right,
Okay. All right, you want to tell me what you want to do for step software?
then,
I feel like I can't think about it. I can't think anymore. We can, 3 hours, we're gonna make bad decisions.
Yes.
I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Uh,
Bye.